Thank you so much for coming tonight. We are really delighted to have everyone with us for the opening of our exhibition, Twombly, Martin, Fishman, and Whitney, curated by Christie's very own senior specialist, Alex Marshall. We are equally as delighted, maybe a little more so, to have two very special panelists with us tonight for a little discussion. Founder and CEO Josh Baer of the Baer Facts.
No, that's me.
That's him. And a man who probably needs very, very little introductions, Mr. John McEnroe. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I know I'm the moderator tonight, but I will do very little moderating. I will just sit back and listen like the audience. And my first question really is for the both of you. I mean, tell us a little bit about how you guys met and got started and what the relationship has been like.
You're obviously a lot younger than me because it's hard to remember things that happened like 30 years ago, even a couple days ago.
Meeting me was not one
Actually,
of the most memorable.
when you way back when you had a gallery.
Right, you remember who brought you in?
No, who?
It was an artist in the same building that you had your space. The one who convinced you to stop buying Impressionist art and start buying contemporary art. He did a famous painting of me. Let's say he was your neighbor.
In Green Street?
Green Street.
Let's see now. How many choices do I get? Jonas Wood?
Yeah, it was Jonas.
No, I'm kidding. I saw him.
Eric Fischel.
Eric
introduced.
Fischel.
And after
Got it.
that.
My bad. He left the building, so that's why
Okay, and then your tenant, the next guy moved into your building, was a guy who was the youngest dealer in New York. You remember him?
David Zwirner.
David Zwirner. Yeah. He used to rent space in your gallery on the second floor.
That's correct.
He traded art for rent. Pretty smart guy, right?
That's not a bad idea, right? Get like one of David Zwirner's artists. He's very cheap, so one time I said, listen, I'd like one of those Elizabeth Paytons. And I knew because we went to the same opening at Gavin Brown's space in, I think, the early 90s when he had his first Elizabeth Payton show, and they were $1,800. So I knew that's how much he had paid for it. And the rent was probably, for the year, because I was only charging him like $2,500 a month, so it was like 30 grand. So I said, I'll take that one instead. And he said, okay. But that was a long time ago. That was in the 90s, so, Elizabeth Payton wasn't quite as expensive as she is now. So that turned out to be a pretty good thing.
And there was a portrait of?
Portrait of Kurt Cobain. Yeah, so, but unfortunately, because I like to wheel and deal a little bit, I've sort of got rid of it.
There's a nice Warhol skull that came out of that. That's pretty good for $1,800 trade or something like that. That wasn't a bad deal, right?
Art's a wonderful thing because it reminds me a lot of what I did as a player. I was out there on my own, so I've always appreciated since the 70s artists in particular because they're sort of laying it on the line, doing a show that you come in and people are very judgmental. Maybe not this group of people. They're but generally, they sort of can come in, oh, that's terrible. And while I played at times, even though I felt like I did have a lot of support, there was a fair amount of people yelling and screaming at me in the stadiums, you suck, shut up. So I had a special affinity even from my early days and when I started on the professional tour, which was 19 or 20, when my late, great buddy Vitas Gerulaitis took me down to Soho in the late, 78 or 9? So that was the first time that I was able to sort of visit artists and get to know them and go to their studios. So it was pretty awesome to feel like that's what sort of eventually got me into contemporary art because I think for me, it was more interesting, even though dead guys are easy to sell and resell.
Yeah.
Or
they
women.
They say.
They say right. That, although this contemporary market's doing pretty well now.
It's strong.
But generally, it was more interesting for me to sort of hear what the artist had to say about their work for
Do
example.
you think that the way you've collected has shifted from when you started 30 some odd years ago to today?
I think it's shifted quite a bit. I mean, I think it's become much more of a business, which is not all good.
Right.
I think in certain ways it turned me off. Even with tennis, I've been trying to have a foundation where, raise enough money so more people can afford to do it. And you don't ever want any business, in my opinion, even though it's been lucrative to probably pretty much everyone in this room, including myself. You don't want it to be where it's like, the 1% tennis. And, in some cases, art can be even more like, well, look at some of this art.
Well,
Dare I say the 0.1%? So it's a different thing. I have to just have one quick shout out before, because Josh is one of my great art advisors for many years. So he's done a phenomenal job with my collection. But that's not who I'm giving a shout out to. I'm giving a shout out to. No, I'm going to go even further back to a buddy of mine who I've known for 30 years. This gentleman over there in the hat, Mr. Fred Hoffman.
Fred Hoffman.
I wanted to say, Fred was another guy who really got me more in love with the art and has been a sort of a pillar of the LA art scene for 30, 40 years. Actually, he was doing stuff with Basquiat in the 80s. So, and his son's named Jean Michel. So from a Jewish guy from LA to have a son named Jean Michel, that's impressive. So thank you, Fred, and thank you, Josh, as well. And I'll even give the Aquavellas a little credit. There they are, Alan, Nick Aquavella.
Look at this.
Thank you. Where's the dad? I'd love to see your dad, because he's a genius. And Bill Aquavella, see, you want to have more art dealers like Bill
Wonderful.
Aquavella, because he's a straight shooter and he's
Integrity.
honest.
Yes.
Okay, so they're oh God, I was going to say they're few and far between, but there are all these art people here. But we need more people like that, just like we need more Rafael Nadals on the tennis circuit.
A lot of heart.
Do you think it's too competitive now, in a sense that part of the appeal for collecting art in the beginning for you when you were playing was the competition, and it was a little bit of a smaller community, and now do you feel like there's like so much of a competitive edge? You see an artist and wait a second, it's going so fast, how do I get these things, that the role of competition has changed?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. I think, to me, art is similar to tennis. It's sort of a microcosm of what's happening, and I think this is happening all over society. People are, in some ways, and an artist should speak to that. I see Jonas is here, there's other artists, but to me, you lose sight of what the art is about a little bit. Even in a sport where it's obvious you win or you lose, in some cases people are just thinking about the money, and so that can hurt a lot of artists.
It can, but I think it often never lasts if you're only thinking about the money. But the type of art that you've collected, John, has that shifted over time, like in terms of
my
medium or
art
style?
taste of I love art in general. You could go back to Tintoretto, but then more recently, when I started collecting, I thought the Impressionists were the greatest artists and art alive, and I also love photorealism. Well, photorealism doesn't have the same cachet, I think, that it did then, back in the 70s, when old Louis Mizell was running things in Soho. And then I got into more, I guess I was a bit of, I love figurative art, generally.
What's the most recent thing that you've purchased?
Well, I did recently purchase a Stanley Whitney.
Very, very good choice.
I see that painting back there. That looks very much like a Stanley Whitney. I hope it is.
I think you're right about that.
I better be, or I'm walking out the door. And I believe that for me personally, it's evolved. I love so much art. I mentioned figurative, but I love photography. I love sculpture. I've gotten more contemporary. I started to get more into abstraction, which I don't completely understand at times, and obviously that's an abstract painting. So I try to keep my
Like
mind
20 years
open.
ago, it was like, abstraction's not for me. You had like one painting, it's like, the collection's not doing that. And it's interesting to me that after all this time, now you seem to be going, oh, wait a second. are you seeing it differently? Is your
I think
eye
I'm more
changed?
open to just, trying to live with something and see how I feel about it than I was before, when it was a little bit more black and white. And but I mean, at first I didn't care. Here's a quick story. My buddy Doug Simon, whose grandfather was Norton Simon, we went to college together. And we were up at Stanford, and we came down to LA one weekend, and he said, let's stay at my grandfather's place in Malibu, okay? Saw these incredible paintings, Picasso, Cezanne, et cetera, all these pieces. I was like, whoa, wow. This is pretty amazing. Fast forward about 3, 4, 5 years after that, his wife was working at the time at a guy by the name of Larry Gagosian, who had a show of Basquiat. Around the time I think Fred was working with him. And then he said, we went in and he said, you gotta buy one of these Basquiats. This stuff is incredible. And so I went in, it was $9,000. And I walked in, I said, this is terrible. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm not buying it. And he goes, listen, just trust me. Just buy this, even if it's just for a business thing. And at that point, I guess I probably changed a little bit because I'm older and I have 6 kids that don't seem to not want me to support them. It's become a little bit more of a business, but I said I wouldn't pay $1,000 for that. So I didn't buy it. Maybe 10 years later, there was the show at the Whitney where they did that sort of lambasted him in a way. The 60 Minutes piece where they're like, kids can do this. And I felt like I didn't particularly care for the art at that time or earlier, but I thought that was really weak of them to sort of do that. So I went and saw the show again, and then I was like, wrong again.
We always remember the ones that get away.
They
No,
came
I
back.
didn't. No, they didn't
away.
get. They didn't. And at the time, in the '90s, you couldn't. Giveaway is the wrong word, but because the price now compared to then is night and day, as it was 10 years before that. But I got it then. I started to get, like, I saw it in a totally different way, and I was like, I want to buy some. So I've had some. I don't. Unfortunately, as I said, I've bought and sold a bunch of stuff. I love to do that, but in that particular case, some of those would have sort of. I've had some Basquiats. I think Basquiat's great. I didn't realize he'd be as great as he was. I should have listened more to Fred over there. Yes, I did, and I'd like to tell you I'd still have it and put them right up there. But I still have one and a couple other things. And Fred's going to sell me one. He left me one in his will. He's going to.
Oh, God. So, Josh, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a doozy of a question. So, how has advising John, amongst other people, kind of changed how you look at art?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because one of the things about working with John is we have a relationship that doesn't say, hey, John, you can't talk to Nick and, Al and Bill Aquavella. That's like talking to geniuses. You have your relationships as well with some of the galleries individually. And sometimes you'll call me and say, what do you think about this? I'm thinking about doing that. And then we've done maybe, I don't know.
Even though every time you said no, don't buy it. Go ahead.
Yeah, or don't sell it.
Okay.
Sometimes, and I would say, sometimes I say don't buy it, but sometimes I say buy it. And that I'm not feeling like there's an ownership thing. Like people say always, that's my client. It's like, you're many people's client, but we've done maybe 30 or 40 things over 20 years or 30 years. And what I like working by you is like recently I saw a work in Miami, like most collectors, you didn't go. I thought, wow, this is a great thing. You have this big loft. And I sent you an image, I called you about it, and you hadn't heard of the artist. And you said, that looks great. Let's go see it. And you went and saw it and said, wow, without me. And he said, that looks great, and let's look at it again. That came, and we looked at it again together. Then you went to the warehouse again, and then you bought this thing. That's like, how great is that for a relationship with the client? It's like that we're on the same wavelength of things. If I find them interesting, you often do. And then we wait till there's the one that you love. And it's about him loving it and me sort of giving context, like the condition, the quality, the market, all that. But if you don't love it, that's the number one rule. So in that sense, with any of the clients that we work with, thank you for the plug about our advisory, that's an important distinction. I don't think I'm trying to impose my taste on you,
Maybe a little bit.
and you on me.
Well, that's fair enough. You've had a couple of people you pushed a little harder than others, but you keep an open mind, unbelievably. Who would have thought that Josh Baer would keep an open mind?
Yeah, I'm
after
well
all
known
these
for
years?
that. It's like, and you're patient. Everybody knows that.
Okay.
6 kids later, I'm patient. Don't laugh at that. Oh, I also, where's John Bergruen? Stand up. Oh, he is standing. I'm sorry. No, I'm kidding, John. I've known John for so long
You're
too.
gonna
I
get
had
gone for
to,
that.
you had to, he had to have it coming. I'm sorry, but there's an art lover there.
I
big
think my
time.
job as a moderator is coming into play right now. You guys, thank you so much. I mean, Josh, like you really do so many different things, and it's really nice to hear that you started in advising and you're kind of coming back to it now. And John, I really had no idea that you had been collecting for so long, and you must have.
Well, I
many-
started very, one piece at a time, literally. I bought a photorealist. Are you cutting us off now, or is
No,
it
no,
time
no.
to
I
go?
was
or
just saying most people
was
don't
like,
buy a dozen at a
commercial
time. So
in
it's great.
6.
No.
No, but I did, one of the first paintings I ever bought was a Picasso piece.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, a landscape from the south of France. I just was like, Pablo, this guy's unbelievable. It turns out he's a pretty good artist, right?
Yeah. Not bad.
But I ended up trading that along with a few other things for a Stuart Davis painting. So I was, worked at a gallery that had a lot of that type of Hartley type of, I was into that in the 90s. You asked, we could
Yeah.
go on for hours here
Yeah.
about the type of art, Hartley, Dove, Davis, and all those modernists, I guess American modernists you call those. But, again, we get to see the likes of, look at what's happening now with the art world. It's on fire. It's incredible.
It is cross categories, whether it's American art, contemporary art, precious modern art.
Well, you have
It's
a
really-
great folk art collection, something.
I like
I
folk
certainly
art,
don't
too.
advise about that because I don't know anything about it.
Folk
but
art's incredible, like self-taught artists. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
See if it ever
without
gets.
without any classical training. Yeah.
So
and we call it
it remains to
outsider
be
art.
seen if that ever would be accepted by the bigwigs.
We actually do a sale of just outsider art, folk art. It
As
does
I
very
said,
well.
it remains to be seen if it will be accepted by the bigwig. We do one over, in March at the South Rodeo and Christie's.
Where's Christie's East?
Christie's
There's in the
East.
Christie's
Anybody remember Christie's East?
Yeah, we remember Christie's East.
It's before my time,
I'm
guys.
Margot. I know.
No, I did want to leave a little time for questions, but I feel like we have a very vested crowd tonight, and just in case anybody wanted to ask
That would
or
be incredible.
respond.
I'd like to know how many people are excited because the Rams won.
Yeah.
And I want to know how many people remember that we bet that I had the Bengals in 4.
Yeah, I owe some money over here because
Somebody-
I made a very impromptu bet that I lost by 1 point.
Bengals
1
in 4
point.
and the Rams winning.
So bittersweet.
Congratulations, LA, for the St. Louis Rams for winning the Super Bowl.
I know, they didn't make the spread in case anybody doesn't know that. But yeah, so do we have Sarah Freelander?
What's the one thing that got away? Like, what's the regret in your head? Art-wise.
Not the Basquiat for $9,000. You have to pick another one.
Jonas.
Jonas.
We've talked many times. No, the one thing that got away, I don't know if I was ever that close to something that was that tasty, because I've been fortunate enough, I've been able to purchase a lot of great artworks. Getaway would that mean one that I had that I shouldn't have sold, or does that mean one that I never got in the first place? Because that's two different
It can
questions.
be-
I've had a lot of great art.
Sarah, can you
I've
clarify? Both.
I've had advice from these Aquavella boys' father many times where he's like, just get Picasso and Matisse. The rest of them are shit. So perhaps if I had been more sort of, that's it, that probably would have been tempting. I tried to get Rodin pieces at one time, whether it's drawing or, God forbid, even a Van Gogh drawing would be amazing. So I've been close, but I've never been tasted it enough where it was like there for the taking. So I don't have like that super regret. I'm more probably just a bunch of great things that I have. I loved Egon Schiele, for example. I thought he was like, well, he is amazing.
He's amazing.
And so I sort of wish I still had that piece, a piece of Egon Schiele as well. But, I'm doing okay, all things considered. I like to support the art world. You got to keep it on with the contemporary artists, too. You got to show them some love also, I believe,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'll take this one, and then, or we can call it out over here. Go ahead.
What's your view of all those young artists that popped up from nowhere in the last 24 months and commanding the auctions, hundreds of thousands, in some cases?
Very good question.
Well, there's obviously a lot of speculation going on. I think it's promoted by people not seeing things in person. So having so much online PDFs, auctions, sitting at home, reading too much, seeing those momentum dealing going. There's a necessary reboot for artists of color that needs to happen. Then it's been overhyped for women and the global nature of it all. So we have every headwind possible at one time. And we've never had it all in the same direction at once. There was always something pushing back, whether it's inflation or the oil prices were down. So we have all that heat going, and that energy has to go somewhere. And you have even people like John sometimes have a hard time buying an artist that's in high demand. And so thank God there's Christie's that'll satisfy that demand to the open market. So you have all that simultaneous. Those of us who are older know that won't go on forever, and the time frame can be really quick there.
And I'm going to just pipe in there. It's always been that way. There's always a group of young kind of artists, and like the names that you've seen, I'm sure, in the 90s and the early 2000s, and they come and go, and they have that kind of, meteoric rise, and then, it kind of goes
Yeah,
back
but the
down.
difference is that 20, 30 years ago, it was 10 to 25
Yes.
grand.
The money
Now
is,
it's a 250 to 500 grand for people that you've literally never heard of.
right.
That's quite a big change.
And there's many more of them. I just think it's the art market has grown so much. There are just so many more people in it and a lot more dollars in it. So we do see that. But I agree with you. It will correct itself as we see fit.
Josh, what do you think of the NFTs and all these alternate formats?
Listen, it's an art medium. So I think people are starting to use the term more unique digital asset, which is probably a better term to separate it from sort of Beanie Baby world of collecting a LeBron James dunk or a John McEnroe, hosting the trophy at Wimbledon kind of thing. So there will be some artists who make some great ones, and those will be important. For me, it's like I'm waiting to see things that are great. That's like, ask me what I think of photography. At the same time, it's back to your question of like, well, it's the crypto boys, it's sneaker culture, it's get rich quick, it's speculation, no one's seeing it. I mean, how bad was the crypto ad in the Super Bowl last night? It's like, okay, that's like, they spent $7 million for that. Yeah. So you have all those things. It's like, my view is, I'm interested. I don't like being the dumbest guy in the room with it, which I am now. And it's like, I'll wait, within a year. It's a year since anybody's even heard the term, not even a year.
Not even.
So let's ask that in a year. John, how many have I made you buy? Like 40 of them, right?
I mean, that's
None.
that's a tough one, because that is just, to me, just shot out of the blue. And now everyone's asking, like, even the sports-wise, how do you take advantage of that? And I don't want to just go in. It's like, obviously, you're just doing it for the money. You don't want to do that. That would be really weak. So some people are totally committed to it. Whoever this Beeples guy is, I mean, apparently that was something that was over the course of a 10, 15-year period. The piece had sold for $68
I
million.
think it was 5,000 days. It was a picture for a consecutive.
Maybe his idol was
5,000
on
days.
Kawara.
But you have to remember that Beeple was a very established crypto artist, an NFT artist before, Christie's even did the sale. And so
What was his highest price at auction
I think
before that?
You're putting me on the spot,
I-
but I will
even
say that
close,
I think that the reason he was kind of brought to our attention was that he did a sale of his own artwork, and it raised in the millions of dollars. And so that raises a flag. Somebody's spending millions, I mean, not per item, but, at a total of 40 or 50 pieces, I think. But that's a considerable amount of money. for
What's
something that
interesting of
doesn't
what
exist.
he's just done, though, I don't know, people paying attention. I mean, you sold this object that's sort of, I guess you could say, sculpture for like $30 million, and everybody's been saying for the last year, is it Larry? Is it Pays? Is it Hauser? He's doing a show in New York at Jack Hanley Gallery. So it's like, wait a second, I'm kind of a new artist.
I like that.
And I'm going to show where young, new artists do it. And it's the complete opposite marketing take that anybody would have anticipated. And it's like, well, let me be judged in a completely different way than you expect. So I give him credit for making a move that's not what Damien might have done, or the sort of the most famous marketers
Right.
of artists.
But he's the crossover.
But he's crossing
crossover.
over, trying to learn this world that's new to him too. And that, for me, was one of the most interesting events of the year, is him making that decision to show with a gallery half of you haven't heard of.
I have.
I also think for some artists, a handful, and I've just recently heard this because I know next to nothing about NFTs, but someone like, I don't know how many people in this, well, I guess a lot of people know Tom Sachs, the artist. I happen to think the guy's a great artist, and he's like a scientist, he's like a genius in a way, but he's never really, auction-wise, you don't see him breaking some major, numbers. But apparently he just did this NFT, like a spaceship thing, and which we've seen many times in a lot of his installations or whatever, where he's got these crazy gimmicks is the wrong thing. He can build anything, and he can build anything. And then he sort of built this spaceship that you get one after it explodes. I don't know the exact details, but it's raised awareness of him as an artist. It may help him quite a bit. So maybe in certain
That's
cases
what I was
it'll
saying.
help.
When artists like that lean into it, then it's going to be interesting. And he was one of the ones I had in mind, who at first, I know through common friends, said, I don't want to do that. And then he said, wait a second, let me think about it. And he figured out a way that made sense for him as an artist. And it's like, some people I know, it's like, why can't I make an NFT out of the Richter painting I have? It's like, because this size is not what he had in mind. He wanted it that size and in that material. And artists have to lean into it as like, it's important for them as a means to communicate something valuable. And that's what you're looking for, is that communication. And you are too.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a really very interesting conversation. I think we could go onto many tangents, and really, I think we're taking the approach that everyone else is, where we're just looking at everything and we're waiting to see where that goes. It's definitely going somewhere, and we'll keep an eye on that. Guillaume.
If you don't know who that man is, that's
He is
Guillaume Cerruti, the
our
worldwide
global CEO
CEO of
Christie.
Christie's.
So listen to his words.
So him talking about it, not
Who
in
is
terms-
that guy?
Yeah, that guy.
He's the big guy.
Is he a NFT guy or
He's
something?
everybody's. If he's your
He's-
boss, raise your hand. Applaud now.
Playing it very smooth, very smooth.
Yes, no, but Guillaume is right. I think that is the point, is that whatever it is important because it is a break and a shift into a new area, wherever that area may be or take us. And the prices really are irrelevant because it's a happening. And that's why there's so much focus and attention on it right now. And it will be really interesting to see where it goes. Do we have any other questions in the audience? Nobody? Everyone's so... Maria Lowe's.
Probably my favorite work, well, it may not be, this is just my I have a beautiful, and I'm not just saying this because those two guys are there, a Lucian Freud piece.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful piece, but maybe I am saying it because they're there. No, it's right at the bottom of my staircase, and I love looking at it every morning when I come down to eat breakfast.
I'm just going to say we have a beautiful Sheila coming up in our London sale.
Ooh.
Guillaume is standing right
could
there.
you make sure no one's bidding? A beautiful what?
And a
Beautiful Freud. An old one or a new one? Old.
All right.
Try to
Okay.
mix it up. Get one, one of everyone. Any other questions before we go off and?
Oh, wait,
Into
that's my job.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sonya.
Do we have any other questions?
You're
Please.
the color commentator. You're not play-by-play tonight, okay? You're the third seat.
Well, thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
It was really lovely having both of you tonight.